The Baltimore Orioles were eliminated from the postseason last week, losing their wild card series to the Kansas City Royals. I'm okay with it. The Orioles haven't played in a World Series in over 40 years, so the team losing in the postseason is nothing new. Plus, they had a really good regular season this year. Won 91 games, finished second in the division. I can't really complain. But on the other hand, it has been 40 years, you know? The last World Series, which we won, was 1983. I was 3 years old. I didn't know from baseball. I was still staggering around in Yoda pajamas and scrawling on the wall with crayons. My mom told me not to, but why should I listen to her? Who'd she ever beat? I've never gotten to watch the Orioles play in a live World Series game. The Orioles play in one of the most beautiful ballparks in the country, Camden Yards. The ballpark that inspired a bunch of other teams to ditch the multi-purpose stadiums and build their own retro ballparks. The Orioles have played their home games there since 1992, and it has never hosted a World Series game. Camden Yards has never hosted a World Series game. So clearly something's got to be done about this, right? But what? Managers, general managers, players, people up and down the Orioles organization have been trying to get the team back to the series for 40 years, and nothing has gotten the job done. Nobody's ever asked me, which, okay, whatever, that's not important. I can put my ego aside for the sake of the team. But if someone were to ask me, I might have a suggestion, a really, really good suggestion. A suggestion that is backed up by historical records and statistical facts. My suggestion is, or rather would be, if anyone were to deign to consult me, bring back the Baltimore chop. For those unaware, the Baltimore chop is when a batter hits the ball and the ball goes almost straight down, impacting the ground directly in front of home plate at incredibly high velocity and bouncing way up high in the air, giving a batter who is a speedy base runner plenty of time to reach first base before anyone on the opposing team has even laid a glove on the ball. If done properly, the Baltimore chop is almost impossible to defend against. The ball goes from the bat to the ground in a fraction of a second, so it can't be caught for an out. The only way to score an out on a batter who has executed a Baltimore chop is to field the ball in time to throw that batter out at first base. But if the ball bounces high enough, there's no way that can happen. The ball is in play, but nobody can get to it. It's a guaranteed base hit, if done properly. The Baltimore chop got its name because it was perfected by the 19th century version of the Baltimore Orioles, one of the greatest teams in the history of baseball. The Orioles dominated the game in the 1890s, and crucial to their success was their relentless deployment of the Baltimore chop. One of the masters of the chop was Willie Keeler, who finished his career with nearly 3,000 hits and a lifetime batting average of .341, which even today, over 100 years after Keeler's death, is still ranked number 15 on the all-time list. His 44-game hitting streak stood as a record from 1897 to 1941 when it was surpassed by Joe DiMaggio. Keeler was one of the greatest hitters in the history of the game. He helped the Orioles win 3 consecutive National League pennants from 1894 to 1896. How did he do it? Baltimore chop! Why'd they ever stop using this technique? The original Orioles franchise was disbanded in 1899. The current version of the Orioles didn't move to Baltimore until the 1954 season, and for more than 50 years prior to that, they'd been the St. Louis Browns. Did it take so long for a major league team to come back to Baltimore that by the time they got there, everyone had forgotten about the chop? The game changed a lot in those intervening decades. The dead ball era ended. Teams relied more on power hitting than the small ball strategies that brought the original Orioles such success. But come on, it's called the Baltimore chop. You're a baseball team in Baltimore. You're just gonna stop using it? If there was a kind of hit called the Pittsburgh slap, do you think the Pirates would still be using it? You bet your ass they would, because what else they got? Now is the perfect time for the Orioles to bring back the chop, because nobody else is doing it. You still get the occasional high-bouncing chopper called a Baltimore chop by play-by-play announcers, But those are accidental. The batter swung over the top of the ball and clipped it at just the right angle. Nobody's doing intentional Baltimore chops. The other teams will never see it coming. Reclaim your proud heritage, Orioles. Grab those bats and start chopping. It'll take practice. In fact, I think it should probably be the focus of batting instruction this offseason heading into spring training next year. Get them in the batting cages. Start working right now on perfecting that downward stroke. Learn to watch for those pitches that come in at just the right angle to take a chop. And most importantly, don't tell anybody about this. Orioles management and players, keep this shit to yourselves. When you get down to Florida in February and some nosy sports reporter sticks a mic in your face and goes, "So what's the game plan for spring training this year?" Don't say, "Well, we're going to be working on mastering the Baltimore chop," like some empty-headed doofus. Tell them whatever bullshit you want, but keep the Baltimore chop a secret. Because if you don't, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Everybody's going to start doing it. Orioles, you need the element of surprise on your side with this. You need that head start so you can come out of the gate on opening day, Baltimore chopping everything in sight, and the other teams aren't going to know what's going on at first. You've got to make up for lost time. The Baltimore chop hasn't been the centerpiece of your offensive strategy for more than a century. Think of all the games the franchise could have won if the Orioles teams of the past had been using the Baltimore chop all along. Did you know if we include the St. Louis Browns years, the lifetime won-loss record of the franchise is under 500? That means they've lost more games than they've won, for those of you who aren't hip to how baseball fans talk statistics. And even if you only count starting when the franchise moved to Baltimore, the lifetime win-loss record is just barely above 500. You think that would still be the case if they hadn't forsaken the Baltimore chop? You think it would have taken until 1966 for them to win their first World Series? You think the Mets would have beaten them in the 1969 World Series? Boog Powell would have Baltimore chopped Mr. Met right in his great big fucking baseball head. Rhetorically speaking, and also possibly literally, would have completely killed the Mets' morale, seeing Lady Met weeping over Mr. Met's lifeless corpse, his yarn brains falling out all over the field at Shea Stadium, would have taken the fight right out of him. The Baltimore chop! It's the crane technique of baseball. Orioles, use it. No mercy.